Hello, hello. Is it working? Yes, I think so. Hello, everyone. I'm here again talking about PBL because I got a lot of questions. The ones who saw me on the Sky Teach event a couple of days ago. And then I did a Q&A session on their channel on Instagram. And I still got a lot of questions about how I did my PBL experiment, a couple of years ago. So I decided to do another live showing a couple of things that you can use as resources for you to learn more about my experience. And the point is for me to download this video and upload it as an IGTV video so that you can watch anytime if you're not live with me now. So I'm going to show a couple of things on my computer. Feel free to ask questions and let's start. Well, the first thing you should do is go to my website. You can go to edcrocks.com. And you can search for this blog post that I did 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago exactly. It was October 2017, and it's called Managing Project-Based Learning, a collaboration with Stefan Hughes. So Stefan, if you are here watching me, thank you very much for helping. He's someone you should follow. The Roving Reporter. You can find him on Instagram. He has wonderful tips on how to work with PBL as well. Now, going back to my blog post, you probably recognize this picture. That was the planning stage at my students who were B1 plus, if I'm not mistaken, took. So that was the stage that we set as one of the parts of doing PBL. And then what I do here, so Stefan Hughes talks about the theory and a couple of excellent ideas and concepts for you to get situated if you've never heard of PBL. And then I talk about my experience in Goiânia at CCBL, the school I used to work for. And then I'm going to talk about some of the tips that I wrote here. So there are 4 tips, and you can look at me while I read them. So PBL means long-term commitment. Having your students work on a project that will be designed, executed, and exhibited in a week or even a month is not the idea behind PBL. So that's very important. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that teachers make when they're working with project-based learning. They feel like I did a project, a weekly project or a week's project, just one, and that's PBL. And PBL is the whole method. It's the foundation. So it needs to be the base of your teaching, I suppose. That's the idea anyway. And PBL is all about them, your students. When you are the one who picks the project and tells them what each one needs to do, you're certainly missing the point of what PBL means. The project will arise from your students, and only then will they be able to call it their project. And that was one of the big mistakes I made when I started. That's why I had to push it, to the next semester, because it just didn't work the first time I did it. I was the one calling the shots. My students were not involved in the selection process. So they have to be involved. They have to select. And one of the things you can do, so I'll get a book. I have a bunch of books here. So I work for National Geographic, so I'll get a National Geographic book, okay? So this is World English by National Geographic. One of the things you can do is open the book with your students and you go to the scope and sequence. So, yes, V Kiss, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Yes, I'll save this live, definitely. So one of the things you can do is look at the units. So you can see that Unit 1 is about friends and family, jobs around the world. houses and apartments, possessions, daily activities, and getting there. So this is probably what you're going to work with during the first semester, right? So, well, let me go back. So the idea is the very first lesson, you get your students to open their books to this page, look at the language they're going to learn. So the grammar, the vocabulary here, the goals of the unit, and try to work out the best way to connect all those units in a project. So the project is going to connect all the units. They have to have this long-term project. That's the way PBL works. It should be like that. So maybe because they're talking about families, family, friends, jobs around the world, houses and apartments, possession, daily activities, and getting there, this one I think is really aligned with one of the projects that I had with the lowest level that I was teaching, which was an A2, A1 plus. People Around the World was the name of their project. I mean, if we're going to talk about friends and family, we can talk about other people's friends and family from different countries, right? Why not? If we're going to talk about jobs around the world, we can, if they're kids, for example. This is a book for adults, but if you're doing this with kids, they can interview people's, other students' parents and relatives, for example, and what kind of jobs they have around the world, you know. Anyway, so maybe by the end of the semester, again, by the end of the semester, they should have a portfolio or a website or a blog or an Instagram account, depending on their age and if their parents have given consent, you know. So you have to work those things out as well. They can have that to show everyone in the class, because you're going to do the project in groups, right? I mean, I'm sure you're working with maybe 10 or more students, maybe even 40 students. I don't know anything about your background, but you should probably have a couple of groups working on different projects, and that's the cool thing. So maybe one of the groups will connect all of those units by, I don't know, writing blog posts. So they're going to start a blog, and there are a lot of tools you can use on the internet to do that. And the other group will just make, I don't know, a big a series of posters. Or maybe they're just going to rehearse a play or something like that about, so come up with a story about different people from different countries, and maybe they can even wear traditional clothes from different countries or something like that. So that would be fun. Anyway, so that's the idea behind PBL, right? Going back to my list here. Will the transition be smooth? Don't take it to the bank, so don't trust it. It takes time to get your students in the PBL framework, and the key aspect that helped me was to share with them as much as possible about PBL. So this is very important. Again, it didn't work very well because they were not used to this level of autonomy for, 1/3 of the lesson, because really I just let them do whatever they were doing as long as they were working on the project. And of course I was guiding them, but to them and to me sometimes it felt like I was not teaching, because we have this very, I'd say, old-fashioned, like a century-old idea that teaching is standing in front of the classroom and talking at your students, asking them to do things. And then, in the 1960s and 70s, we had this revolution with the communicative approach, and then we started, talking, eliciting from our students, presenting things, and then, think, pair, share, right? And that's not teaching necessarily. Teaching has many different aspects, and I feel like allowing your students to figure out things on their own is teaching, and it's even better teaching, more memorable, because they can learn much more according to the research. So if you want to read more about this, you can come to my blog, again, to my website here, EDC Rocks, and then you can see it for yourself, right? And the last tip here is PBL should impact their communities, be it local, regional, or global. There should be an external audience that will follow what they're doing and learn from it. So the word here is accountability. I'm not the only one assessing their project, because they're interviewing people from all over the world. They're talking to students from Poland or Israel, like I mentioned. Those students are looking at their projects and what are they doing? Why are they doing this? And they can ask questions, they can engage in conversations. So that's very important. And also you can get the parents involved, you can get other groups from different classes involved as well, so that they are held accountable. I'm not doing this to get a grade just for the teacher to look at, but I'm doing this because other people will be looking at this, and the product, which is the final project, will be useful for something, and that's much more relevant. If you think about it, it's much more relevant to the students. Okay, all right. So and then I talk about my framework. So I'm gonna show you, here are my, by the way, those are my projects according to the level, and I use the CFR so that you know. So you have the level, the age, right, and the project. So you have people around the world, page comparing different people's habits, my city or city page comparing what cities in the world offer, what all you need is love, report on how love is celebrated around the world, not just another book. That was the literary book based on the units of their book, Live TML, Instagram account about travel, culture, learning, and society, right? So my students were the ones who selected the projects. As I said, that's very important. They have to be involved in the conversation, in the selection process, right? But if you are, just like me, a teacher in a country that students are not used to critical thinking and freedom in the class to do whatever they want, as long as, of course, they stick to a project, it might be very difficult for you to okay, I'm interested in the things you talk. Okay, thank you. Yeah, sure, I'll share with you Vicky's, I think. Yeah, I'll download this video and upload to IGTV. Okay, so you can keep following me and go to my website, EDC Rocks. Okay. Anyway, so if you are from a country like Brazil, where students are not used to the freedom of choosing what they can do in the lesson, unless of course they are at a higher academic level, like undergraduate or postgraduate course or something like that, because then we have much more freedom, right? It could be very hard for you to get your students on board and for them to see that they can actually learn more. So when I did the satisfaction survey at the end, a lot of students felt that they were learning less when in fact they had kept basically the same grades or improved the grades when compared to the previous semester. So how do you get them to a position, to a place actually where they are ready to receive this kind of input or this method, to be able to work with this method? Well, you have to work with their mindsets. And what I did from not the beginning, but almost the beginning, maybe a couple of weeks after the beginning of classes in the first semester of 2017, I started getting them used to this framework that I came up with. So I basically did this. I needed to give them a framework that by itself was based on PBL, that we could do in every lesson or most lessons. So I would normally start every lesson with a conversation which could be related to the topic or not. And Oh, thank you, V London. Where are you from? Thank you very much. So, revision is so anyway, the conversation was about getting them to warm up, and then revision was about what did we do last class. What can you remember? And I used active retrieval. Active retrieval, very important term for you who like neuroscience like I do. I have a blog post on that as well. Anyway, so revision, couple of minutes to try to remember what we did last. Oh, from Russia, welcome. So last lesson, the previous lesson, and then problem. So the problem was a prompt, something to get them to think about questions, to solve that problem. So the problem was the topic of the lesson or something related. Inquiry was about asking questions to solve the problem. So what is this problem about? How can we solve this? What are some other problems connected with this problem? And then we had investigation. So that was the biggest chunk of the lesson because that was the most important part to get them in the PBL framework. They had to be able to investigate using their tools. So they could use their own books because, the lessons, they have the language and vocabulary, grammar that they need to learn to be able to talk about the topic, and the topic again was the problem, right? And or they could use their cell phones or laptops, whatever they had. If you don't have access to the internet, stick to the book, bring some worksheets or books or magazines or anything, or you can just bring your own laptop if you don't have too many students. I would normally bring my laptop and leave my laptop somewhere so that they can use the computer. That I had only one computer in the classroom, and then other students could use my laptop. So you can do that as well, or even your cell phone if it's connected, to the internet. And then exhibition and extension. So you have basically what did you find out and share with everyone. And what do the other groups think? So they would get, normally they would work within their own groups, but sometimes I'd actually mix them up so that they wouldn't work with a lot of, all the time with the same people. And finally, the wrap up with, so extension, by the way, is homework. I just changed the name. It sounds much better like that. And the wrap up is reflect on the lesson and whether you played the role you were supposed to, and establish the next steps, right? Okay, so now this all may sound very abstract to you. So I wrote this in October 2017, right? Then I decided to share a lesson with this framework. It took me a long time, so I actually wrote another blog post with the lesson on April 16th, 2018, and you can find this on my blog, on my website as well. And this is, I'm using a different book, English ID, Unit 3. I'm sure you are familiar with Paul Seligson, Luis Otávio Barros. That's their book, great book as well. And a lesson plan with authentic materials about traveling and cities. This is how I did it, how I would do most lessons. So you have the slides here. So remember the steps that I was showing. Revision, I'll talk about brain breaks in a second. The problem with the prompt. So the prompt was the picture. In this case, a picture with a passport, some money, a map. Inquiry. So I would normally have a list of questions and also ask them to ask me questions about the problem, and then brain break again, and then investigation. So that would take around 7 minutes. So that was one part of the investigation. And then you had another part. So I would have 2 slides or something like that. But I always sort of followed this framework, And I have a very short explanation. And if you want to download this lesson, you can. That's the cool part. So you just click on the link and it takes you to Google Slides, and you will know exactly how to work with PBL on a lesson basis. So every lesson you can work with this framework that I came up with. I've never seen this framework anywhere. So, you know, I'm taking credit for it. I think I was the one who created it. And so our lessons would start with this conversation. And here you'll have, you know, the description of what you should do. So the stage is meant for students to have a conversation at the beginning of the lesson. Let them talk about the topics in whichever way they like and things like that. They can talk in pairs. So I'm going to talk about trips, right? So here you can see best trip. And we're going to talk about traveling based on the problem that I showed you, the passport and everything, right? So this is a very nice warm-up activity to get them, you know, in the zone, let's say, like talking about the topic that we're going to explore. And then if you go to the next slide, so this is step 2, revision. So, and again, I put the you know, minutes, how long it will take. It doesn't necessarily have to take 5 minutes, kind of like when you're planning for CELTA or whatever. We don't really know. Let's just, you know, go with the flow sometimes. Sometimes I know we have to cover the content, but anyway, you know what I mean, right? So in pairs, what did we do last class? What do you remember? What was the most interesting part? Again, I would advise you not to do this in pairs nowadays. After I studied more neuroscience, I'd advise you to start individually and then pairs. So you can give them 1 minute to do this individually. So try to remember what we did last class. What can you remember? If you want, you can write down a couple of things and then you can share, okay? And then this is cool. So one of the things that I've been doing for a very long time, and I think I have the thing here. Yes. It's called the brain break, huh? Pomodoro technique, right? Yeah, so in a 1.5 hour lesson, I will probably have 2 to 3 brain breaks. Yeah, CELTA freak. Yes, exactly. Just, you know, timing everything, writing all the details. So this is the Pomodoro timer that my wife bought me. Thank you very much, love. It's cool. I use it in sessions, lectures, and my lessons. And basically what I do, I can use this. I can set the timer to like 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 25 minutes maximum. You know, normally a Pomodoro is a 25-minute burst of, you know, focused work. So then you should have a 5-minute break, but I don't follow those rules, you know, precisely, let's say. It depends very much on how tired and inattentive or disengaged my students are. But every lesson, I will have probably 2 to 3 brain breaks. And then I normally put them in the sequence of slides if I'm using slides, or I'll just take my Pomodoro timer to make sure that the students are paying attention. So in this case, the brain break is related. It's fun, but it's related to the content. And this brain break is pretty cool because it's Matt. I think his name is Matt Harding. And this guy, he dances all over the world. So it's pretty fun, actually. I don't know, maybe I can play a little. I don't know if the live streaming is that fast so you can see what it looks like, you know. I don't know if you can see. So he has this weird dance, and then he's filmed in many different parts of the world with sometimes hundreds of people around him, which is pretty cool. And I normally ask my students to write down the places that, you know, caught their attention or something like that. This is a very nice brain break because, you know, the song is great. And Matt has a very weird dance, and you can actually have your students try to dance like Matt. But the cool thing is that this is connected to the lesson. So the problem, which is coming next. So the problem is this. So it's pretty easy to guess now because we've been talking about best trip. I showed Matt, you know. And then I ask them, what is the problem? And then they will go like, oh, traveling. They know, by the way, they know that the problem is the subject or the topic we're going to discuss. That's what the problem is. Project-based learning has something to do with problem-based learning, right? So that's why I use this problem. It's important to get them used to the vocabulary of PBL, right? Anyway, so they know that the problem is traveling. And then, so here at this stage, students should try to find out what will be the problem of the lesson. What the problem of the lesson will be sounds better, right? Twin VIP English School. Yes, you can just go to my website, or you can just send me a direct message and I'll send you the link, okay? But if you go to my website and you look for English ID 3, you'll find it. If you search that, you'll find it, okay? It's edcrocks.com, okay? Right? Anyway, all right, so the problem is the topic we'll discuss and work on a solution at the end. This is sort of a presentation if you're more used to the PPP framework. Just elicit the word travel or trip from the students and have them mention a couple of problems they can have when they travel, right? Or a couple of things that are connected with traveling. It doesn't have to be a problem, right? Just to get them thinking, brainstorming. You can do that with the whole group. I like to do that with the whole group to use the Socratic method. They say something, I ask a question, and then and it kind of builds up and brings us to the next topic, which is inquiry. So inquiry is about asking questions. So when I show them the problem, I give them 2 minutes, 3 minutes to ask, the kind of, first questions that come to their minds. And then now I force them to think a little harder. And you know what? You might be thinking, okay, but what about the book? Well, this is based on the lesson that you can find in the book. So if you go to English ID 3, whatever page and book, I think it's unit 3, unit 3 cities or something like that, traveling. This is all based on the book. I'm not using the sequence of activities from the book. I'm coming up with my own activities, but Alexandra has mentioned something, or find the lesson plan tag. Yes, thank you very much, Alexandra. That will work too. So yeah, so it's based on the book. Again, the book here, in my opinion, serves more as a means to an end, right? To get somewhere. And I feel like it did work very well for me anyway. So here, inquiry is about asking questions, right? So I have some, I normally, before I show them the questions, I can ask them to write their own questions or in pairs, brainstorm a couple of questions or whatever. You can do whatever you want. And have your students sit in pairs or trios, let them speculate about Matt Harding. So, who is this guy? The guy dancing everywhere. What does he do? Where has he been to? Things like that. What kind of job does he have? Why does he dance in different cities around the world? Would you like to have his life and things like that? They can come up with their own, questions as well. You could do it before you show your questions anyway. And then you move on to investigation. So that's the big chunk, very important, the heart of PBL. We need to find information to solve the problem. The problem is we're talking about traveling, we're talking about math. We need to find ways to come up with this. So use your phone. So in this case, I asked my students to use your phones and research about Matt Harding's life. Try to find as much information as possible. You have only 5 minutes to search and 2 minutes to share. So if you read the description, it's about finding the right answers. If your students have access to the internet, just follow the instructions. If they don't, you can read Matt Harding's Wikipedia page and have your students take notes while you read. That's one thing you can do, or you could even print the page. You could do a reading exercise. Then they can share what they wrote down in pairs, and you can use, so this is the link, right? And then, this will take 7 minutes. They will write down as much information as they can about Matt Harding. And they will see that Matt is all about traveling, right? So if you go to the brain break, if you go to the next slide, it's a brain break. And again, since we're talking about Matt, he has very funny and cool videos, with the weird dance. I decided to add another Matt Harding's video, which is pretty cool. The students normally love the videos. And then carrying on, we go to investigation again. So that's the second part of investigation. And you can see, oops, let me go back. So I got this from Matt Harding's page somewhere. So he has a website. And this is a description of, it's his bio. So Matt is a 41-year-old deadbeat from Westport, Connecticut, and whatever. And then if they have cell phones, they can use the QR code, right? And then this slide is about a text that you can find here. You also have the link. If your students can use a QR code reader, that's even better, And then here, this is interesting. They can underline some words they don't know and search. They don't always search the meaning on any online dictionary. Tell them, and this is so this is related to the book. Tell them to answer only exercise 1 and 2. So they have an activity in their books that is related to this, right? And then, so here again, very important. The framework has 7 steps. But sometimes I add steps that are more related to the PPP framework. So I added the practice step because I really wanted to show them that they are supposed to know. So the whole lesson was about traveling and about cities, right? And you can see that Matt has been all over the world to different cities, and they need to learn these words. So that's the vocabulary that they have to learn. So I think there's more. So this is one part of it. And then you have more. So you can see that those are actually taken from the book, literally taken from the book, really. So it's exercise A and B, page 26, student book. And then here you have page 27, C, D, F, and G. So you get all the words and get them to practice using that. So this is going to take a couple of minutes, both slides, and then we move on again, another brain break. I'm pretty sure this is the last one. Oh, this is a cool brain break. This is a quiz so that the students can check how many cities they know. So they're going to see pictures of different cities around the world, and then they have to guess based on the features, right? And again, since we are working with traveling, so the vocabulary is connected with traveling, and different parts or features of a city, they're going to see the same things on the pictures, right? So the pictures are going to show them different aspects of the city. They should be able to remember and practice a little more the vocabulary. And then if you go to the production, again, I'm falling back on, oh yes, this is for, because of Edward Snowden and the CIA, right? I got a little paranoid. So anyway, the falling back on the PPP framework. So you have here 15 minutes. You have a picture of a very cool city. Can you guess which city this is? Huh? I'll give you 2 seconds. 2, 1. Shanghai. Yes, Shanghai. So go back to Matt's text and answer exercise 3. So here, this stage, you want the students to produce something based on what has been discussed so far. They should work in groups of 4 or trios. Ask them to do a little research on the cities mentioned in the text, right? And then again, they can use Wikipedia or Google. Lonely Planet, that's a great website about traveling, to talk about different cities and what is interesting, cool, not so cool about different cities. And finally, extension. So this will take about 5 minutes. Select a different city to present about. in class. So this should be the next class, and we can use the revision part. Remember step 2, revision for them to present, because it should take like a minute per person or something like that. Which city, where is it, what is the coolest aspect of the city? Maybe you can even bring a picture of the city and share with the class and point out some of the words you learned last lesson or something like that, and use the vocabulary, right? And then, and so this is the wrap up. So the wrap up is the moment for reflection. What did we discuss today? What did we learn? What was interesting? Did I participate? Did I speak English when it was possible? Especially if they don't have, sometimes they will use L1. It's sort of inevitable. And what's my next step, right? And this is perfect for them to self-assess, or, I'd say to reflect on their role in the classroom. So this is one of the lessons with the framework that helps your students get into the PBL mindset. But this connects with the bigger picture. Remember, this lesson is not PBL. This is one very small part of PBL that connects with all the rest. Because this is one unit, it's about the cities, world cities. And, but we used a PBL-like method in the lesson that will get your students used to this investigation process, because we want them to do the investigation on their own. I'm going to give them time during the lesson, of course, to do that. So normally we'll have a couple of minutes to work on the project. So sometimes if they finished, if we finish too quick and we still have like 10 or 15 minutes, okay, so what about your project, your final project that you're going to present at the end of the semester? How does this lesson connect with that? Okay, great. So let's brainstorm, write some ideas. If you are working on a blog post or a website or anything, so use the time that you have now to do something, to write a couple of notes, or you can even start writing in class if you have the means to do that. Anyway, so again, this is one part of the whole thing, and the whole thing is much bigger, and that's what PBL is about. It's about the bigger picture, okay? Now, going back to my original post, right? October 2nd, 2017. If you go to the end of it, the very, very end of it, I show some pictures of my students working on the project, okay? So you can see that a lot of materials in the class, not just working with the computers, and then I say something that I never actually updated this blog post. So I said, so far that's what we have. I honestly feel that most of the students are excited to be working on their project and that their learning outcomes have improved. And I think they actually did improve, because most of the students kept the same grade or improved their grades. And normally, if you look at the trend, the second semester, because everyone is tired from the whole year of having classes, they normally decrease their grades a little. So they actually their grades decline a little. So I felt like I was able to keep their interest or level attention span high for most of the semester, because we were working with PBL, right? And again, at the end of the semester, this group presented a video. I remember they did a very cool video. Well, one of the students was actually narrating the video about cities in the world. So they talked about Tokyo. Another some other students talked about Paris and Dubai, remember? So no, actually that's a different one. So I'm confusing the cities. There's too many cities involved. But it was Tokyo, Berlin maybe? Trying to remember. And there was another one. I think it was an American city. Could have been New York, probably. Anyway, so they made the video. They presented the video in class. Some of them wanted to present a video. Others used a poster that they did with Canva. So they learned how to use Canva. Others presented, so it was a video, the Canva poster, and then I had another group. In this group, they worked with kind of a website, you know, kind of like a blog that you could click on the pictures and then you could read their the information on the cities and things like that, right? And the project involved all the units and whatever they could remember of the language that they had been exposed to, the vocabulary, the units, you know, the grammar structures, right? And so this is what you can do if you're willing to give PBL a chance. That's how you can do it. Now I'm going to download this video, upload it to IGTV, PBL, and then you can watch it as many times as you want. And I'm going to upload the live session I did for SkyTeach community yesterday with the Q&A that I got. So I got like 20 questions. How do you cover the content, the curriculum? What about reading? How do you work with reading and speaking? And, you know, so I answered all those questions. Can you do PBL with individual students, like one-to-one classes? I answered all those questions, so you can watch this one and you can watch the other one if you have time. And you can also sign up, so you can go to my course. I'm going to show you right now. You go to EDC Rocks, and then this is my website. And if you want to know more about my courses, so I have 4. So we're still working on this with Rodolfo Machello and Kate Matveva, and the other ones are basically ready. So if you want to do a cool online course, you can click here and you can look at the syllabus. So, you know, history of education, Socrates, active learning, talk about Montessori, Reggio. So it's active learning and with a special focus on PBL. And then, of course, we're going to have a project and then finally assessment, feedback. But so modules 3 and 4 are basically about my experience and the problems that may come up, okay? So you can definitely, thank you very much, Alexandra. Yes, I'm glad you liked it, the whole thing. So anyway, and if you want, you can just go back and you can go to courses and masterclass. And so this is normally how it works. I will give you a zoom. So this is a masterclass that I did a couple of months ago with the slides, right? So you can select here the course. So the course is active learning. So special price for you now. It's a 20-hour course that gives you access to, well, 20-hour actually is a 10-hour course plus 10 hours of dedication and reading and doing your project, right? So, you will get access to Google Classroom and all the activities, okay? So you can come to my website, make sure you select this one, all right? I hope you enjoyed this live session. I hope that I was able to answer some of your bigger questions. And again, if you have any other questions, you know where to find me. Send me a direct message, go to my website, find me on social media. I'll do my best to answer as soon as I can, okay? Thank you very much, and give PBL a shot. It's really worth it, okay? I loved it. So, bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for joining, all right? And have fun. Have a great week. No more questions? Let me check here. No more, okay. Okay, I think we're good. So, bye-bye. See ya.